Reflection. You ever wonder why a man will leave the very woman who held him down, lifted him up, and prayed for him when nobody else even cared? Reflection. Why does he walk away from the one who gave him her everything? It's not because she didn't care. It's not because she wasn't loyal. Reflection. And it sure as hell isn't because she wasn't enough. It's deeper than that, because sometimes a man ain't ready to face himself in the mirror that woman holds up. Reflection. And when she cares too deeply, he feels exposed, uncomfortable, seen. I've seen this happen more times than I can count. A woman shows up for a man in every way she knows how. Reflection. She brings her heart, her time, her patience. She gives him loyalty. She listens. She forgives. And then one day, without warning, he leaves. Reflection. He walks out not just on her, but on everything she was willing to build with him. And people stand around asking, why? Reflection. Why would he do that to someone who cared so much? And here's what I've learned, what I've seen, what I know deep down to be true. Reflection. Some men leave not because they don't want love, but because they haven't healed enough to hold it. That man may smile, he may laugh, he may even tell you he's fine, but inside, reflection. He's carrying something he never told you about. He's got wounds so deep, he doesn't even know where to start cleaning them. Reflection. And the truth is, some people don't leave because they don't care. They leave because love feels too heavy to hold when your hands are still full of pain. Reflection. A man who hasn't healed will see love as a burden, not a blessing. You say, I'm here for you. And he hears, you want something from me? You offer patience. Reflection. And he questions your motives. You try to love him harder when he shuts down, and he sees that as pressure, because the moment someone gets close enough to touch the broken pieces, he panics. Reflection. That man isn't ready to be seen. Not really. Because when a woman really loves a man, when she truly cares, she doesn't just look at him. She looks into him. Reflection. And if he hasn't come to terms with who he is, who he's been, what he's been through, that kind of love doesn't feel comforting. It feels threatening, because it calls him out of hiding. Reflection. And how many men are still hiding behind toughness, behind silence, behind business, hiding behind pride, hiding because somewhere along the way, reflection, someone taught them that feeling pain made them weak, that crying made them soft, that opening up would make them less of a man. So instead of healing, they built walls. Reflection. And then along comes this woman, this beautiful, open-hearted, soul-centered woman, and she tries to reach him through the cracks. But when someone lives too long behind a wall, reflection, they don't trust the ones who try to climb it, so he leaves. Not because he didn't feel something for her, not because he didn't see her value, reflection, but because her love was too pure for his pain. And instead of growing to meet her where she stood, he ran back to where he felt safe, even if it meant being alone. Reflection. And I need you to hear this if you've ever been that woman. You did not lose him. He lost his opportunity to heal with you. You didn't scare him away with how much you cared. Reflection. You reflected too much of what he hadn't dealt with. You reminded him of the version of himself he was avoiding. And the thing is, healing can be painful. Facing your trauma is messy. Reflection. A lot of people aren't ready for that truth. It takes courage to sit with your pain, to unpack your past, to say, reflection, I'm not okay, but I want to be better. It takes strength to stay when love asks more of you than just attention and affection. When it demands growth, when it whispers, reflection, come out of hiding. So if he left, it's not because you weren't enough. It's because he wasn't whole. You were loving a man who still needed to learn how to love himself. Reflection. And until he does, no matter how deeply you care, no matter how much you give, it won't land, not fully. Reflection. Because unhealed people will always find a way to reject what they don't feel worthy of receiving. But that doesn't mean you stop loving with that same depth. That doesn't mean you shrink. Reflection. That doesn't mean you hold back the next time someone comes into your life. Because one day, someone will walk in who has done the work. Someone who has sat with their pain long enough to say, reflection, I'm ready. Ready to be loved, ready to love back, ready to grow with you. Until then, don't take his leaving as a reflection of your worth. Take it as confirmation of your power. Reflection. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to love someone who wasn't ready to heal? Have you mistaken their silence for indifference when it was really just fear? Reflection. Drop your story in the comments. Somebody out there needs to hear they're not alone. And if this message touched something and you share it, like it. Reflection. Let someone else feel seen through your courage, because the kind of love you carry, it's rare, and it deserves someone who's ready to receive it. Reflection. There's something I've seen far too often in this world. A woman gives her heart to a man. She's consistent, present, loyal. She speaks life into him. She doesn't ask for perfection. Reflection. only effort. And still he pulls away. Still he leaves. People look at her like she did too much, like her love was overwhelming. Flexion. But let me tell you something. It wasn't the love that scared him. It was the depth of it. See, surface level love is easy. That's the kind of love where you show up when it's convenient. Reflection. Where you text when you're bored. Where you smile in public and disappear in private. That love doesn't ask anything from you. It doesn't demand growth. It doesn't make you uncomfortable. Flexion. But the kind of love that a real woman brings, a woman who cares, that love is deep. That love holds a mirror up to your soul and says, what are you hiding? What haven't you healed? Reflection. What are you really afraid of? And not every man is ready to answer those questions. See, a man can be strong in the gym, tough on the outside. Reflection. Powerful in the boardroom. But when it comes to emotional depth, that's a battlefield a lot of men have never been trained to walk into because the world told them early on, don't cry. Flexion, don't feel too much. Don't be soft. So now when a woman comes in with softness and strength at the same time, when she sits next to him and says, you can let go here. Reflection, you can breathe here. You don't have to pretend. He doesn't know what to do with that. He's used to performance. He's used to pretending. He's used to masking pain with silence, reflection, with distraction, with temporary affection that never touches the real wound. So when she brings depth, he mistakes it for danger. She starts asking questions he's never asked himself. Reflection. She notices when his energy shifts, she doesn't let him hide behind that fake smile. She says, talk to me. And she means it. Flexion. And you know what happens when a man has spent years avoiding himself? When someone finally calls his spirit forward, flexion. When someone finally reaches for that buried little boy inside the man who just wanted to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel understood, he runs. He doesn't run because she's wrong. Reflection. He runs because she's right. And when someone gets too close to the truth, when they knock on the door of a soul that's been locked for decades, fear takes over. Fear says, reflection, she's going to leave you once she sees the real you. Fear says, don't let her in. You don't even know how to let yourself in. Fear says, reflection. This is too good to be true. And he believes that fear. He listens to it because surface love never asked him to challenge it. But deep love, the kind that shakes you awake, reflection, that love says, you don't get to hide here. Pax, and some men aren't ready for that awakening. They're not ready for a love that makes them question the image they've built. Reflection, the reputation they've curated, the ego they've protected like a fortress. They say they want a real one, but when she shows up, real raw, reflection, grounded, they push her away because she brings real expectations, not just of romance, but of honesty, of emotional integrity, of intimacy that doesn't hide behind performance. Flexion, she sees his pain and doesn't flinch. She sees his walls and doesn't try to climb over them. She waits for him to tear them down. And that right there. Reflection. That's what separates a deep woman from everyone else. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She simply says, I'm here. Reflection. But I won't stay where love can't grow. See, and when that man walks away, what he's really doing is choosing the shallow end of the pool because the deep water feels too unfamiliar. Flexion. Too cold. Too honest, and he doesn't know how to swim in it. But let me say this loud and clear. Her depth was never the problem. It was the answer to his healing. Flexion. The question is, was he ready to be healed? Because it's not her love that's too much. It's his readiness that's too little. Reflection. So don't let anyone make you feel like your depth is a burden. Your depth is a blessing. It filters out what's not real. It makes the shallow things fall away. And if he left, let him go. Reflection. Let him walk into the shallow if that's what he's used to. Because someone out there is drowning in a world of fake love, just waiting to meet a woman who knows how to go deep. Flexion. Now tell me this. Have you ever held space for someone who was afraid to meet you at your level? Have you ever had to watch someone walk away, not because they didn't care, reflection, but because they couldn't handle being truly as seen? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if this message stirred something in you, like share, subscribe, reflection, because your depth is a gift. And someone somewhere is praying for exactly the love you carry. You ever meet someone who doesn't know how to be loved? I mean, really loved. Reflection. The kind of love that doesn't ask for anything but truth. That doesn't need performance. That doesn't care about the car he drives, the watch on his wrist. Flexion. The followers on his feed, but sees the man behind the image and still says, you're worthy. And yet he pulls away, shuts down, disappears. And you're left there wondering, flexion, how can someone reject something so real? Let me tell you. Flexion. There are men out here who don't know how to receive love because they've never seen it modeled right, not in their childhood, not in their relationships, not even within themselves. Reflection. So when a woman shows up who actually cares, who's not in it for status, reflection, not in it for convenience, but because she sees his light even when he's in the dark, he doesn't know what to do with that. Because survival taught him to question kindness. Reflection, it trained him to be skeptical of softness. And now when love walks through the door, real love, the kind that heals, he backs up flexion, not because he doesn't feel it, but because he doesn't trust it. You see, people who have been in survival mode too long, they don't know how to rest in peace. Flexion, they only know how to brace for pain. They've been trained to look for the catch, to expect the betrayal, to hold their breath, even in safe spaces. Flexion, because safety has never lasted long enough to feel real. So when a woman says, I'm not going anywhere, he hears, until I mess up. When she says, you can talk to me, he hears, flexion, until I say too much. Because deep down, he's already convinced himself that love is conditional, even if she never said it was. And let me tell you something that might sting. Reflection. When a man doesn't know how to receive love, he will push away the very thing his soul is starving for. He'll take her patience and call it pressure. Flexion. He'll take her loyalty and label it control. He'll take her emotional availability and twist it into neediness. Flexion. Not because that's what it is, but because that's the only language he's ever spoken. He's fluent in dysfunction. He's comfortable in distance. And love that asks him to feel. Reflection. To lean in, to either soften. That's a language he never learned. And that woman who loves him, she's stuck between holding on and letting go. Flexion. Because she sees who he could be if he let love in. But you can't force someone to receive what they've never been taught to believe they deserve. Sometimes, flexion. Love doesn't bounce off because it's weak. It bounces off because the heart it's trying to reach is armored in shame, fear, and years of unhealed wounds. Reflection. And no matter how pure her intentions, how honest her heart, if he's never been loved right, he will not know how to accept right love. And this is where it gets real. Flexion. That man might want love. He might even crave it. But until he's ready to face the reasons he doesn't feel worthy of it, he'll keep pushing it away. Reflection. It's not that he doesn't see her effort. It's not that he doesn't recognize her value. It's that he can't bring himself to believe that he's enough for her love. Flexion. Because if all he's ever known is conditional acceptance, judgment, abandonment, or manipulation, then unconditional love feels like a setup, feels like a trap. Reflection feels like something that can't possibly last, so he self-sabotages, he creates distance, he picks fights, he goes silent. Reflection, not because he wants to leave, but because staying would require him to unlearn everything he thought he knew about love. And unlearning is hard. But let me be clear about this. Flexion. Her love was not the problem. The problem was his inability to receive it. And here's the part that's hardest to swallow. She can't fix that. No matter how nurturing she is. Reflection. No matter how understanding, no matter how patient, she can love him deeply, truly, completely, but if she cannot teach him how to love himself, that's a lesson every man has to learn alone. Reflection, and until he does, her love will feel like a burden to him, not because it is reflection, but because he doesn't know what to do with a gift he doesn't believe he's worthy of. So if he walked away from love that was real, don't you dare shrink. Flexion, don't you dare start loving less. Don't you dare become cold just to make your love easier to digest. Keep loving the way you do. Keep showing up with honesty, depth, and presence. Reflection. Because eventually, the right man, the healed man, he won't question your love. He'll honor it. He'll receive it. And he'll give it back. Flexion. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever given your love to someone who didn't know how to hold it? Flexion. Have you ever felt like you had to convince someone they were worthy of what you were giving freely? Drop your story in the comments. If this message spoke to your spirit, like a share, reflection, and subscribe, because your love is not too much. It's just waiting for someone ready enough to receive it. Let's talk about fear for a second. Not the kind of fear you see in a dark alley, flexion, or the kind that makes your heart race when something jumps out at you. I'm talking about the fear that's quiet, the fear that's invisible, flexion, the kind that lives in the corners of a man's soul, the fear of being truly seen, the fear of letting someone in and realizing they may not like what they find. You see, reflection, a woman who cares doesn't just show up for the good parts. She doesn't fall in love with the highlight reel. She wants the real stuff, the messy stuff, the part of him that's confused, conflicted, maybe even ashamed. Reflection. And for a man who spent his whole life being told to man up, to stay strong, to hold it in, that kind of exposure feels like stepping into a spotlight naked, unprotected. Reflection. Vulnerable. That's when the fear creeps in. He thinks, if she sees all of me, will she still stay? Or if I tell her about the nights I cried alone, the pressure I carry. Reflection. The voices in my head that won't quiet down when she still loved me. So what does he do? He shuts down. He creates distance. Reflection. Not because she's done anything wrong. She's just gotten too close to the truth. And here's what's wild about that. He wants connection. He wants love. But when he finally has it, reflection, he doesn't feel safe enough to keep it because no one ever showed him that love can be both strong and soft. That being vulnerable doesn't make him weak. It makes him human. Reflection, a woman comes along with patience, compassion, loyalty, and instead of embracing her, he starts sabotaging it. He picks little fights. He gets quiet. Reflection, he acts like he's fine when he's breaking inside. Because in his mind, reflection, it's safer to walk away before she sees too much, before she really knows him, than it is to risk being exposed and then abandoned. And that right there, that's the tragedy. Reflection, because she's not the enemy, she's the blessing. She's the safe space he's never had. But fear doesn't recognize blessings. Fear only sees risk. Now think about that. Reflection. A man can be so afraid of being fully known that he would rather lose love than risk vulnerability. He's not leaving because she didn't care. Reflection. He's leaving because she cared too deeply. And that care started to shine a light on the places he kept in the dark. And he wasn't ready for that. And the worst part is, reflection, some women take that personally. They start shrinking their love, dimming their light, walking on eggshells, thinking maybe they were too emotional, too expressive, too much. Reflection. But let me say this loud and clear. It was never your depth that was the problem. It was his fear that couldn't swim in it. When a man hasn't made peace with his past, reflection, when he hasn't faced his own insecurities, when he hasn't sat down and looked himself in the mirror and said, reflection, this is who I am, flaws and all, then love doesn't feel like a safe place. It feels like a spotlight. And the closer you get, the more he panics. Because in his heart, reflection, he's still trying to protect the little boy who was told not to cry, who was told not to feel, who was told love had to be earned, not received freely. So what does he do? Reflection. He pulls away from the one person who would have stayed. And that woman, she's left holding the pieces of a man who wasn't broken by her, but by his own refusal to be whole. Reflection. If he left you when you were loving him right, it wasn't you're not too much, your love wasn't too intense. He was just too scared. Scared of being vulnerable. Reflection. Scared of being known. Scared of being loved in a way that required him to show up authentically. That kind of love takes courage. It takes accountability. It takes healing. Reflection. It takes standing in front of someone and saying, this is who I am. Scars and all. I'm still worthy of love. And until a man is ready to do that, no amount of care will make him stay. Reflection, because he's not leaving you. He's running from himself. So don't hold your head down. Don't close your heart. Reflection. And don't you dare let one man's fear convince you to love less next time. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever loved someone who couldn't handle being fully seen? Reflection. Someone who ran not because of what you did, but because of what they were afraid to face within themselves. Drop your experience in the comments. Reflection. Let's build a space where real conversations happen. If this spoke to you, like a share, subscribe, because real love is powerful. But it only works when both people are brave enough to receive it. Reflection. Let me tell you something that a lot of people don't want to say out loud. Peace can be intimidating, especially for someone who's only ever known chaos. Reflection. You'd think a man would be drawn to a peaceful woman, a stable relationship, a love that doesn't come with drama or manipulation. But the truth is, when a man is used to emotional storms, reflection, when all he's ever experienced is conflict and confusion, peace doesn't feel natural. It feels foreign. And sometimes foreign feels the unsafe. AC, reflection. When a woman shows up with calm in her spirit, when she's grounded, not reactive, not playing games, a man who's used to dysfunction doesn't trust it. He starts looking for the catch. Reflection. He starts wondering, why isn't she yelling? Why isn't she accusing me? Why isn't she trying to control me? And the reason is simple. Reflection. She's not trying to create chaos. She isn't chaos. She's peace. But because he's never had that before, he doesn't know how to receive it. Reflection. And that right there is where the disconnect happens. He says he wants something real. He says he's tired of the games, tired of the drama, tired of the emotional roller coasters. Reflection. And here comes this woman who listens before she reacts, who speaks with intention, who creates a space where he can rest, not perform. And what does he do? He gets uncomfortable. Reflection, because deep down, peace feels boring to someone addicted to emotional highs and lows. He's not used to just the being. He's used to surviving. And there's no adrenaline rush in peace. Reflection. There's no chaos to chase. There's just stability, honesty, intimacy. And that requires him to sit with himself. And that's the part he doesn't know how to do. reflection. So he starts stirring up what he's familiar with. He picks fights that don't need to be picked. He misinterprets silence as distance. He starts searching for problems where there are none. Reflection, because that calmness, that peace, it's confronting. It holds a mirror up to his chaos and says, and you can't hide here. If a man isn't ready for that, reflection, he'll convince himself that something's wrong, even when everything is right. And you know what's tragic? The peaceful woman will start to question herself. Reflection, she'll wonder if she should have reacted louder, if she should have been more dramatic, if her silence made her seem like she didn't care. Reflection, but let me tell you something, don't ever apologize for being peace. Your calm is not the problem. Your presence is not a void. Reflection, you don't have to create tension to prove that your love is real. Some people just aren't ready for the kind of stillness that requires them to face their inner noise. Reflection, when a man has only ever known women who yelled, who manipulated, who withheld affection as punishment, who made him chase validation, peace feels unnatural. Because it doesn't demand reflection, it doesn't confuse, it doesn't fluctuate, it's just that they're steady, consistent, healing. But healing doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels unfamiliar, reflection, and unfamiliar can feel scary. That's why he leaves. Not because you weren't enough, not because you didn't do enough, reflection, but because he didn't know how to exist in a space that didn't match the dysfunction he's internalized as love. He doesn't feel alive unless there's conflict, reflection, unless there's a fight to win, unless there's a fire to put out, and peace doesn't give him that. Peace gives him a mirror, and not everybody's ready to look into that. So what happens? Reflection, he walks away, and you're sitting there thinking, how could someone leave this? I gave my best, I didn't yell. I didn't play games, I was patient, loving, reflection, understanding. And you were all of that. But he wasn't ready to stop chasing chaos. He wasn't ready to sit in a love that didn't require him to survive. And until he is, reflection, he's going to keep leaving peace for the storms he's familiar with. But that doesn't mean, dollar, you change. Don't let someone else's discomfort with peace turn you into chaos. Reflection, don't water down your presence to match someone's broken perception of love. Stay steady, stay grounded. Because there's a man out there who's prayed for a love just like yours. Reflection, a man who's done the healing, a man who isn't afraid of quiet moments or calm conversations or a love that holds without hurting. You don't need to chase. You don't need to perform. Reflection, you just need to be. Now let me ask you, have you ever loved someone who didn't know how to live without drama? Someone who walked away not because of what was wrong, reflection, but because everything felt too right. Let's talk about it in the comments. And if this message touched something inside you, like a share, reflection, subscribe, because peace isn't passive, it's, and one day the right person will choose to stay in the calm you create. Reflection. One of the deepest misunderstandings in relationships, especially between men and women, is this idea that love alone will fix everything. That if a woman loves a man enough, reflection, supports him enough, believes in him enough, she can somehow save him from himself. But what happens when that love, that deep, loyal, patient love, is met with a man who refuses to grow? Reflection. Let me tell you, that love starts to hurt, because here's the truth of Zeva's love without growth becomes suffering. You can't build a future with someone who's committed to standing still. Reflection. You can't heal someone who's determined to stay broken. You can't pull a man forward if he's digging his heels into the past. And no matter how much you pour into him, your time, reflection, your heart, your wisdom, if he's not willing to evolve, your love will start to feel like a burden instead of a blessing. There are men out here who say they want to be better, reflection. But when it comes time to do the S work, the inner work, the soul work, the emotional labor, they tap out because real growth is uncomfortable. It forces a man to confront his ego, reflection, to examine his habits, to challenge his excuses. And not every man is ready for that kind of transformation. So when a woman shows up who isn't just looking for chemistry, reflection, but growth, who wants to evolve together, he starts to feel the pressure. And it's not because she's too much, reflection. It's because she exposes what he's not willing to confront within himself. Maybe she encourages him to communicate better. Maybe she holds him accountable. Reflection. Maybe she doesn't tolerate the same emotional laziness he got away with in the past. And that makes him uncomfortable, because growth requires humility, reflection. And some men aren't ready to admit they don't have it all figured out. So you know what happens? He starts resenting the very woman who's trying to help him rise. Reflection. He'll say she's changing him. He'll say she's always trying to fix him, but she's not trying to fix him. She's trying to build something with him. Reflection, she's trying to grow. But growth scares people who are still clinging to comfort. And when he realizes that growth means sacrifice, effort, introspection, he runs. Reflection. He runs not because she asked too much, but because he gave too little. He wanted the love, but not the discipline. He wanted the loyalty, but not the accountability. Flexion. He wanted the benefits of a strong woman, but not the responsibility that comes with loving one. And that's the truth many won't say out loud. A strong woman will not settle for stagnation. Reflection. She's not going to water herself down to make him feel taller. She's not going to carry the entire relationship on her back while he refuses to take a single step forward. At some point, reflection, she stops talking, stops begging, stops trying, because she realizes that if a man refuses to grow, she's not in a relationship, she's in a cycle. And cycles drain you. Flexion, they make you doubt yourself. They make you question your worth. But the moment she steps back, she sees clearly his lack of growth was never her responsibility to manage. It was his. Reflection. And here's what I want every woman to hear: you are not hard to love because you desire growth. You are not asking for too much because you expect communication, accountability, and evolution. Flexion. You're asking for what a real relationship that requires maturity. Don't let a man's refusal to grow make you shrink. Don't carry the guilt of someone else's fear. If he left, let him go. Reflection. Because what's meant for you will grow with you, not against you. You deserve a love that evolves, a love that matures, a love that doesn't retreat when things get real, but steps up, learns, adapts, and expands. And the right man. Flexion. He won't just want your love. He'll be willing to grow for it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever loved someone who refused to grow? Reflection. Someone who made you feel like your standards were the problem when really it was their comfort zone holding them back. Drop your experience in the comments. Flexion. If this message spoke to something deep in your spirit, like a share and subscribe, because real love doesn't just feel good, it grows good. And you deserve that. Reflection. Every time. So now let's bring this all home. You gave love, real love. You poured your heart into someone who said he needed it, wanted it, maybe even begged for it when things got dark. Flexion. You were patient when he was lost, loyal when he was confused, forgiving when he didn't deserve it. And somehow, even then, he walked away. Not because you failed him. Reflection. Not because your love wasn't powerful enough, but because he couldn't carry it. Because he hadn't done the internal work to receive what you gave. Reflection. He hadn't healed enough to hold something that pure. And instead of growing into it, he shrank away from it. That's what many people never talk about. Flexion. The fact that not everybody can handle being loved the right way. When a woman stands in her truth, when she refuses to be small, when she offers love that's rooted in maturity, vision, flexion, and peace, only a man who has faced himself can meet her there. Only a man who has done the uncomfortable work of breaking generational cycles, challenging his ego, facing his wounds, reflection, and rising in integrity can match that kind of love. Everyone says they want something real until it shows up, but real requires responsibility. Real requires reflection. Reflection, real requires the courage to grow. You can't give a man a future he won't build with you. You can't speak life into someone who's committed to self-sabotage. You can't keep showing up with fire and expect someone who's afraid of the flame to stay. He might love the warmth, but the moment it gets too bright, too revealing, he runs. So don't shrink. Don't lower your standards. Don't play small just so someone else can feel tall. You were never too emotional, never too loyal, never too intense, never too loving. Flexion. You were simply too much for the man who was too little with himself. And I need you to hear that deep down, because the world will try to convince you that being soft is weak. Reflection, that being steady is boring, that asking for effort makes you needy. But I'm telling you the opposite. Your softness is sacred. Your standards are strength. Your peace is power. Reflection. And you don't have to apologize for being exactly who you are. Because somewhere there is a man who won't just admire your strength. He'll match it. Reflection. He won't just benefit from your love. He'll return and he'll grow beside you, build with you, show up when it matters. Not because you begged, but because he wants to. Flexion, because he's ready, because he's done making excuses, because he knows exactly what he has in you, and he refuses to lose it. And until that man arrives, reflection, don't lower your frequency for anyone who isn't tuned into your truth. So I want to leave you with this. Have you ever loved someone who couldn't meet you where you stood? Reflection. Someone who wanted the idea of love, but not the work that comes with keeping it alive. I want you to take a moment, not just to answer that for me, but to answer it for yourself. Reflection. Because healing starts with honesty. And sometimes that honesty means admitting that you were never the problem. You were the mirror they refused to look into. Reflection. If this message touched something in your soul, I want you to do 3 things right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone, and someone out there needs to hear your story. Reflection. Hit that like button if this gave you the clarity or confirmation you didn't know you needed. And most importantly, subscribe. Because we're not just talking about love here. Reflection. We're talking about growth, about healing, about rising into the version of yourself that doesn't settle, doesn't beg, and doesn't dim her light for anyone. You are not hard to love. Reflection. You are simply no longer willing to accept love that comes half-built. And that is your power. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay whole, and above all, reflection. Stay true to your light. Because the right one, he won't fear it. He'll honor it. And that's the love you wait for. That's the love you deserve.